Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. My name is Miriam Crispin, and I'm going to be your moderator today for today's webinar. Today's conversation is focused on how intentional event planning drives membership, sponsorship, and chapter success. Events that are not just events, these are the engines behind growth. The chapters that win are the ones that plan, structure, and execute intentionally. So I'm going to be introducing the panelists today. We have Jocelyn from San Diego, who brings strong leadership and structure. Peter from Seattle, who focuses on financial strategy and revenue. Maymay from Sacramento, who excels in engagement and experience. And last but not least, Tao from Denver, who brings execution and operational insight. Thank you all again for being here. I really appreciate each and one of you in taking the time to share your insights with our chapters. Now, before we begin into the specifics of events and strategy, I want to level set something really important. A lot of the chapters focus on the event itself, the venue, the turnout, the execution. But what we've seen time and time again is that the success of an event is actually determined long before the event even starts. It comes down to planning, structure, and having a clear vision for the year. Because the reality is that if you're planning events last minute, you're really already behind. So we're going to start there with the foundation. So planning for your year. Jocelyn,
Yes.
I'm going to start with you.
Okay.
All right. So what are some of the non-negotiables before the year starts?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mimi. So, really setting the tone for the entire year before the year starts, obviously, because how you start something is how you're going to finish it. And so, I kind of came up with a fun framework just to talk about the non-negotiables, and I gave it the acronym of ACTION. So each letter represents something. So, A for alignment and clarity, because this is all about your why. Like, what are we about this year? We're not just about events, but we're about identity. What do we want to be known for? So A for alignment. C for calendar, because as we know, we have to lock in these dates early because if there's no date, it doesn't happen. And I
Mhm.
get it, things change and availability and things like that. But just having that mindset of having the dates on your calendar so that your board knows kind of like what to expect for the entire year. And I'm talking about like events, board meetings, initiatives, because again, if it's not on the calendar, it's not real. And this also helps with sponsors and creating momentum for everything that you do. T for teamwork, because this is where a lot of chapters can struggle. And I've seen that, firsthand, because everyone gets really excited about the beginning, but then no one is like fully accountable yet. So really the team roles and taking ownership of what they're assigned to do, because again, we want to set an expectation for everyone. And then I for infrastructure. And that's just a fancy word of saying, how you operate. Like, are you guys checking in weekly? Are you on Slack? Are you on WhatsApp? Like, just having good systems. And one thing that the CSC and ARIA, what we're really proud of is that we've created manuals. And I know that other chapters are happy to share what makes them successful. So that's, a very important thing about, the non-negotiables for the years, like the infrastructure and then opportunities. This is really about the sponsors and just making sure that you're starting your conversations early with them because sponsors, they plan their year ahead too. So just really making sure that you're talking to them early and kind of locking them in before the beginning of the year. And then finally, and I thought this one was kind of fun, it's for your narrative, your message that you're going to be, I guess, sending throughout the year because whether we like it or not, or whether we realize it or not, people really like to associate with a brand. So if your chapter from the beginning of the year kind of sets a narrative, what we want to be known for, that really is attractive and people are drawn to that. So definitely starting your year with intention and not being reactive is what I think are like the non-negotiables for a year.
I love that. And what's that acronym again?
Action.
Action. Okay. All
Yes.
righty. Did Peter, you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think let's add another A in there. Accountability. You need to
Yes.
know who's going to be running those events because uh, if everyone's pointing to each other about like, oh, you got this handle, you got this handle, nothing gets handled. So accountability is number one, and then the other non-negotiable for us, especially in Seattle, is budgeting. You have to have a master budget so you know where all the monies are going to be, and you don't end the year with zero.
Love it. That's some solid information right there. And Jocelyn, what does a successful board retreat look like?
Oh yeah, board retreats are so much fun because it kind of again sets the tone for the year. And if you can do it on like a remote location, it would be nice because the board feels connected, and this is kind of where all of the magic is starting to happen. But I get it, we're all such busy professionals, and it's so hard to kind of get people to unplug and really spend like a full day planning out the year. But definitely try to encourage it because again, we want everyone to feel like a part of something really special. I know that in my year when I was president of San Diego, I wanted to set the tone of being super professional but fun. We locked ourselves in a boardroom on top of downtown San Diego, and in the middle of the day, we had breakfast and lunch at the right times. But beyond the logistics of just the actual day and time and venue and whatnot, a successful board retreat, it's not just about planning, but it's about aligning and like Peter said, like ownership and accountability and just bringing the energy because you can build the best plan in the world, but if the board isn't aligned, it won't execute. And so, I mean, you all know we all did the strengths, and I wish that I had that when I was president. It's like let's figure out what everyone's strengths are because what do I always say? Like if you're showing up naturally in what you do best, then you're going to be really passionate about your year because people they contribute differently when they feel seen, and that's
Mhm.
really what at the end of the day what it's all about. Yes, we have the events, we have our mission, we have sponsorship, membership, all of the pillars that we all are very well versed in, but none of that happens unless we are aligned. So in my opinion, I feel like a successful board retreat is just about getting the team together and just saying, hey guys, this is our year. Let's tackle it and kill it. So that's kind of again the logistics are easy, but it's really just the ownership and taking it to the end.
Yeah, execution.
Yeah.
Tal, did you have something to add on to that?
Yes, most definitely. I think I just wanted to add on to where not just the alignment, but coming into a retreat to be prepared, right? So if there is a retreat coming in, then make sure that the leadership is already prepped. Being preparation is make sure all the chair members are named and their responsibilities, their roles, I think is very important. And so that they could just know what their deliverables are for the year and what to serve for the board. And then secondly is setting goals like Jocelyn has mentioned. And then having an event planning timeline, I think is very important for the part to do that is during the retreat so that you can plan out the entire year, what events you're going to have and why that is important because then it leads to sponsorship because these sponsors are going to be the ones who look at how many events we're going to put out during the year and if there's value to these events. So, I think those are the things that is very important to have a retreat prior to come in prepared for a retreat. And then after that, whether it's a half day, full day, our Denver chapter usually does half day. And then we just go out to have a nice dinner and just relax after that and then get to know each other. Because this is also the time where there's new chair members, not from the previous year, but new membership, new board members. And that's where we can mix and mingle a little bit just to have a better understanding of each other on a personal level. Yeah. So
Yeah, I love that. And Peter, so how far in advance should events be planned?
Yeah, good question. So for us, we have two types of events. We have a regular monthly event, and then we have our signature events. So for the monthly events, you should be planning these at least 60 days in advance because in order for you to get a venue, a speaker, and sponsor, you need that lead time. And then you need a proper amount of, I always like 30 days to promote the event. For our signature events, which are, we have a homeowner expo. Last year we did a pickleball tournament, and then the gala is, those are like planning a wedding, I feel like. So you got to plan it almost like 6 months in advance. I mean, if you're catering to 300 people, the venues, they fill up, especially around December. That's when we have our galas. Everyone is throwing their, end of the company party. And so it should be like 6 months in advance. And if you want, I mean, we raise significant amount of money at all three of those signature events, you need to have a sponsorship package. You need to know what you're selling, what they're going to be doing. So definitely 6 months. This year, Seattle's doing something new. We're trying out meetup style, basically just happy hours. And we'll get into this, but I'm not a big believer in free events. I think if you add enough value, people are going to want to, pay and come. But this meetup that we're trying to do this year is more of like to bring in the young professionals. So we're really pushing edge this year. And so we have, Aaliyah, who's heading the Edge committee for Seattle, is really like, hey, we're gonna do some fun, light stuff. We don't need sponsors or anything like that, but these are maybe 2 weeks in advance, just sending things out. We just did our first one for St. Patty's Day, and we had about 35 people.
All righty. May, did you have something to add on to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to piggyback on Peter what he was mentioned. Definitely 60 to 90-day windows. With the engagement and branding standpoint, planning early, we need to plan early because people do not just attend events because they existed. They attend because they heard about it. There's enough time, understand the value, and feel organized. So it takes a lot of time to plan a great event. And if you do have events, and definitely you need to have enough runway to build momentum through save the date, sponsor spotlight, social posts, email reminder, and just the personal outreach to be able to kind of get the momentum step by step. So that's how usually it gets stronger turnout, and not just the plans, because you need to have a focus point and getting the attendees to the more attendees to join that event.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because having that follow-up while you're waiting for your event, like calling them and having social media presence, I mean, that's very important too, because you want to make sure that you promote the event. And how else do you promote it? Social media, calling, inviting, texting, like you have to like blow it out of the water to, get people to be like, hey, oh, they're having an event. And, you got to do all that too. So that's a great point.
Yep.
Yeah, Tao. So I have a question here. What mistakes do chapters make when they don't plan early? Like what happens when we're not planning?
Yeah, for sure, you're going to run into a lot of mistakes without planning. But one of the biggest challenges that each chapter will face if they don't plan early is really losing out on sponsorship opportunities. Because typically sponsors will budget their months in advance, right? And if you don't give them enough time, you're not going to be able to get their sponsorship, or they will allocate their funds elsewhere. So that for sure is, we're in this organization where it's all about sponsorship and membership. So we do not have that on the agenda in advance. We're going to lose out sponsorships because a lot of our sponsors even says that like the big ones will need at least like a whole 6 months in advance if they're going to be any sponsor. But I mean, besides that, calendar conflicts, right? If you don't plan your event and throw it out there, there might be other events happening and it could conflict with other organizations' events. So as soon as you can put out your date out there, at least other organizations who plan their event will try to avoid that event so that we don't have to spread out the attendees. And, and of course, in Denver, especially, we are a small community. So one part of us is going to go to this event. They're not all, we don't have that much people to, go to another ANHPI event, for example. And of course, I think with, the attendance strategy is if you can put out the event long enough and promote it, then people will at least plan out to be at that specific event. Even though, yes, there's attendees that, wait last minute to attend these events, but at least if we can promote it out there, they can put it in their calendar to know, hey, I am going to this event that ARIA is hosting for Lunar New Year, for example, and I'm going to block out my day and I'm not going to do anything else that day. And especially for Lunar New Year, because Lunar New Year is it just comes not the same time every calendar year. And so many organizations try to book the lion dance. So if you don't have those dates well planned out, you're going to be conflicting with other ANHPI organizations trying to do a Lunar New Year event. And then lastly on that is to have an event that's planned out, then you can also delegate. And this is one of the things that you probably hear overlap with the other, panelists speaking, because really it does overlap each other. So if you don't have your event planned out in advance, you cannot plan for delegating tasks to your board members, and things are just going to scramble last minute. And that's what we don't want to see. And then I think finally, the main thing is plan out a venue, having your vendors. If you're going to do some operational like swags and stuff, you need to be able to order those items in and not pay like rush fee on those, right? So that's just very, it's just reality where you just plan ahead so that you don't procrastinate and spend, end up spending extra money, not necessary money.
Yeah,
So.
you want to stay under the budget for each event. Yeah. Jocelyn, any?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, Tao said pretty much almost everything that I was thinking as well. I mean, because when you don't plan early, it's not just like a logistical like nightmare, but it also is like kind of a leadership issue because what ends up happening is like you go from being like intentional and being a leader and intentional to becoming like reactive and just trying to like figure out what's going on or what went wrong or yeah. And people, they can feel that, like your attendees, the sponsors, like everyone on the board feels it, and it just becomes really stressful. And then it becomes, instead of creating an experience for everyone, it ends up being kind of like you're just pulling off an event. And so I think that's probably one of the most important things about just planning early because you want the event to be designed. You don't want it to just be like something like, oh, let's pull off an event. So yeah, I mean, like I said, Tao pretty much mentioned everything. Yeah. So she mentioned it all. Great job.
Yeah, and I think when you have great planning too and you create FOMO, people want to come to your events and you pack the house and then when the sponsors see a packed house, it's like, oh wow, okay, maybe we should sponsor next event. We're seeing that this place is like packed and full and sold out. So yeah, you're creating that momentum. So basically what I'm hearing then for planning for the year, to have successful chapter planning is to plan early and create that structure. Alrighty, so what we're hearing is that strong chapters don't just react, they plan ahead, build structure from the beginning. So now that we've talked about the foundation, let's shift into how that actually shows up into your events. So, event strategy, right? May, what makes an event attractive to members and sponsors?
So for me, what makes the events attractive really comes down to one thing: clear and intentional value for both sides. So because of the at end of the day, the member and sponsors both asking, what am I getting out of this event? So I like to break it down to two perspectives. So for members giving their time, their valuable time. We're all busy. So time is everything in our industries, right? So events have to answer there's certain questions. A lot of members say, am I learning something? Am I meeting the right people? Is this actually helped me grow personally and professionally? And I always say networking alone is just not enough anymore. Like it's just outdated. So instead, I'd like to anchor like events with a purpose. Something like market updates, leadership conversations, a skill-based workshop, or even like a community focus event that we're doing, especially in Greater Sacramento. We're planning the rebuild day with associations. We do a home buyer a collaboration with association with the home buyer expo. So these are things that can be able to help with a purpose. So something where they can walk away and say, that was actually worth my time, right?
Yeah.
And for sponsors, this is where a lot of chapters miss the mark because sponsors are not just paying for exposure. They're paying for a connection, they're paying for positioning and alignment. So I always think, how are we integrating them into the experience? Not just place their logo on the flyers, right? Because logo placement alone is just not enough anymore for sponsors. They want to kind of look at some of the few things that can implement. For instance, like speaking opportunity and presence. Even if it's short, it just give them that authority, give them that, that opportunity. Intentional introductions, like making sure they're connected to key attendance, social media visibility. So like sponsor spotlight, like tagging them, storytelling, for instance, and even an on-site branding that actually get them seen. So these are the extra, personal touch that you will have to get into to make that relationship with sponsors, and just not, intentional logo on the flyers, right? Yeah. So for us in Great Sacramento, we do something like coffee and conversation events, which we threw last month, and it is
Oh,
Uh-oh.
Oh, she froze.
We're good.
Um, oh, maybe you
Yep.
froze.
Oh, I'm here.
we heard the last of the coffee and connection. I think that's what it was, or
Okay.
something with
Okay. The
with the
coffee
sponsor.
conversation event.
Yeah,
Okay. Can you guys hear me now?
yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, so we added a like a headshot, like a free headshot, and a small group conversations that we can sit and just be vulnerable, intentional network environments. So it gives like a value to member and it attracted to sponsor to actually go and kind of, have that intimate conversations. So bottom lines, for me, attractive event is purpose driven. It has to be well positioned and just thoughtfully executed on both members and sponsors.
Okay. Quick thing, real quick. For the event that you're talking about with sponsors, is that one of your four main events, or is that just like an event you throw maybe specifically for just a sponsor?
We actually have monthly events that we throw. We have like, some major events throughout the years, but these small conversations, we just feel like it's a little bit more intimate.
Mhm.
The member can be able to feel more vulnerable to come and have a conversation because with big ones, you get only get like, little small conversations, but with
Right.
these small events and you actually add on to some value to members, actually feel like they can be able to connect as well.
Okay. Peter, did you have something to add on to that?
Yeah, those are all great points. Three things. So know your audience, know who your members are, and what your sponsors are looking for. So if you have a speaker, make sure it's something that relative to your audience. Like for example, we want residential realtors because we know everybody else will come if the residential realtors come. Venue, make it a sexy venue. If we do it at the library, you're probably not gonna get a lot of people there, right? So having nice restaurants, bars are good things to know. Second thing is track your events. So if you have successful events in the past, you probably want to do it again in the future. So we just did one speed networking, and I'm going to share the performer that we made for it. But huge hit. Last year we had about 100. This year we had about 98, 99. So we had a lot of people there. And the third thing is, you mentioned it before, Miriam, build FOMO videos. If it's not on the gram, and it didn't happen. We have a board member. Her name is Sandy Sun. We call her Mama Sun. She makes sure that we have tons of pictures, videos, so it's well documented. And then everybody's like, man, I missed out on that event. And so it makes them want to come to the next one.
Yeah. All righty. Well, I'm gonna circle back to May real quick because I did want to ask her, how do you create must-attend events?
Peter actually kind of touch base right now about it. And I do agree with these three key layers because must attend events don't happen by accident. They are designed it. So Peter is great on the events, what I've seen, but mainly what he said, the audience is important, positioning is important, experience is important. So with audience, before anything, you always have to ask, like, what do our member actually need right now? And that's always the questions that comes up, because when you plan events, obviously we want to attract more members, right? So we want to see what's this market, what member really need right now. Because if you miss this part, everything else doesn't matter. So are they looking for more education? They're looking for more community, business growth, visibility, supporting in this market. So that when you have these question answer, you can be able to kind of create the events that relate to help the members. Positions is huge. This is where I see the biggest gap, right? It's not just what the event is, it's how you present it. So people decide in second if something is worth attending. So instead of doing like networking mixer, you can position something like new member welcome, industry connected night, or market insight, as Peter say, like a speeding game that's very fun to join. So it feels more elevated, more intentional, more worth their time to come. So also the experience is definitely a must. This is where you're gonna stand out, right? And sometimes like depends on the market, what's hip during that year, like pickleball and things like that. You kind of like draw into events, and actually has a networking piece of it, but also it can people can link to it. So um, can you hear me? Actually,
Yeah, we
yeah.
can hear you. Yeah.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So the must attend, you have to create energies, conversation, relationship, and momentum. So these are all the things that you needed to create a great event.
Okay. Jocelyn?
Ah. Yeah, for must attend events. I like what Peter was saying earlier, and I totally agree with everything that May said about, if the realtors come, then everyone comes. So that goes back to like, who is this event for? And a lot of times, yes, it is for realtors. And some of the most like must-attend events that we had in San Diego were topics that realtors are interested in. A lot of them want to hear from other top producers that tell their stories. That's always a popular thing. Of course, the educational piece, finance, tax experts, etc. But one of the most popular events that we've done are motivational and attractive speakers, or speakers that are hard to get. For instance, Neil Dingra, he charges a lot of money to be a keynote speaker, but we were able to get him at one of our ARIA events because it was also like, hey, Neil, you're going to have a captive audience of, go-getters and real estate and lending professionals. And he was able to also promote one of his events. So it was kind of like we both had a great purpose for it. And we were able to get him for free because, again, he had a platform to promote his event. And it's something that realtors and lenders are very interested in. So I think that if you can think outside of the box and try to get speakers that aren't necessarily real estate related, but, have a great message, which is what it's all about. It's about the human condition, and people will flock to those kinds of events.
Yeah, and I met other people before where their chapters had themes. So maybe that's something too that you can maybe go by, have a theme for the year. And I believe one of the themes was like AI and tax talk, and they incorporated both of those things because we have to get used to AI and how now it's like so advanced in our industry. And then of course tax talk, it's not always fun and pretty, but we got to know about it. So and that was a theme that one chapter did. So maybe doing something like that too might be making it more easy for you to create topics and have events based on that.
That's so funny
Um,
you say that because we had a tax event and we're like, oh, this is gonna be boring. So we called it like tacos and taxes or something like that. So we
I love it.
had like a theme to it.
Yeah, and then usually when you have food at events, people show up. You'll be surprised. Like if you're like, oh, here we're having an event. Oh, by the way, there's free food. They love it.
Isn't it not an
Um,
argument unless it has food?
yeah, right. Peter, and how important is consistency?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's super important. If you're spending all this time to do an event and then you don't do another event for 3, 4 months, it like kills the momentum, right?
Mhm.
And so you have to have something every month. We started it last year, and then this year, our President Francis this year has done the same thing. We just every month we got something going on, and so if you want to attract more members, they have to come to these events, or else they're going to forget about you. It's like clients, right? Stay top of mind. So same thing.
Quick question. So you guys have an event every month. Do you charge for every event that you have, or only for the four signatures? Four signatures.
Absolutely, every single
Every
event.
even
We're
monthly events?
charging.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't believe in free events.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Tom, do you have something to add to that?
I think besides the consistency of keep on throwing events is also the consistency of what works out the previous year. So if something that worked out the previous year, definitely throw it in there, which Peter had touched on earlier too. So I really don't have much to, add on to this because I think Peter tackled it all.
Awesome. Okay, no worries. And Jocelyn, which event drives the most growth in your opinion?
Yeah, and usually, obviously, the signature events like the galas and the golf tournaments and the pickleball tournaments, the things that Aria is known for. But what we found was, again, we're trying to get more exposure to Aria for people that aren't necessarily familiar with Aria. We have a signature event called Women in Real Estate, where we invite some of the top real estate professionals to talk about their story. Again, I'm kind of going back to like people want to hear other people's stories. But what that does is when we bring top professionals, they bring their tribe. They bring the people that support them and love them that might not necessarily know about Aria. So for us, it's been a huge growth driver because they come and they're like, wow, what is this organization that puts on this fantastic event? And it's been a huge driver for us for new members because it's exposure to an audience that we might not normally have had in the past. So that's a big one for us. But again, it's the usual signature events that are tried and true, and people just love coming to them every year. It's almost like a tradition to come to our galas every year.
Yeah.
Especially
Usually you guys sell out, right? You guys sell every year.
Yes.
May, any add-on to that?
Oh, the growth.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? Can you hear us?
Sorry about that. I figured out. What is the event that drive most growth?
Yeah, that drives most growth. Yes.
Yeah, I love what Jocelyn was saying. And I think I would add that events drives the most growth are usually the ones that bring both visibility and connections, right? So in my experience, like Mixer, the lunches, collaboration events with other organizations, anything that give new people an ease entrance point into the chapter. So growth happens when people actually feel welcomed, when they can see the culture of the chapter, and when they understand how to stay involved after an event. So all these things with strong purpose tends to drive better growth than events that are just social for the sake of being social, right? So like leadership panels, a home buyer events, a community service events, and conversations around the real issue in housing, those tend to attract people who connect with a mission, not just an event itself. So for best growth are the ones that is well branded, mission aligned, and easy for both members and non-members to say yes to.
Great. Okay. All right. Yeah. So consistency builds credibility, and that's what keeps members engaged and sponsors coming back. All right. So let's be real. None of this works if the numbers don't make any sense. So let's talk about the financial side of things. Fun, right? All righty. So if your event costs $5,000 and your goal is $7,000, the $2,000 in revenue must be planned. So Peter, how do you budget before booking?
Is it okay if we let Tal go first on this one?
Yeah. All right, Tal, go ahead.
Maybe I'll kind of generalize it, Peter, and then you can kind of go down to the details of it. But yes, I do want to go over like the 6 key points of budgeting, right? So number 1, what is the event purpose? Because is it educational? Is it for membership? Or is it for a cultural celebration? And so by identifying these event purposes, then you can drive the level of investment and the overall budget, right? Who is your audience? That brings me to the second key point is define the audience and the attendance. How many attendees are going to be showing up to this, because if you're going to have something like the gala, or something like a flagship type of event, then that's going to cost more versus like a continuous education class. So know your attendance and who your audience are, because that's going to determine how much you're going to be spending. The third thing is to build the experience. So compared to, let's say, a Lunar New Year open house event that our Denver chapter has been very successful for the last couple of years versus like a gala. But the Lunar New Year open house, we can provide more like snacks, appetizers, some dim sum that kind of ties in with cultural celebration. But at something like at the Denver Center Performing Arts is something that we would have to expense more for, like a 3-course meal, for example, right? So is it going to be a formal dinner? Is it just going to be like a lunch experience, or lunch and learn, just bites? So then the next thing would be, right, the venue, the space that you're going to be holding these events, because that's going to cost money. Being that if it was the gala versus something small, and I'm comparing, something big versus something little, or not as big as an event, but the level of comparison is to two extremes, so that we can just understand that the entertainment, the decorations versus the education events, those are two different things. So we need to know what our core expenses are based on that type of event to structure to. And then once we could figure that out, then we can maybe do reverse engineer revenue. So then that way we can set the ticket pricing based on what type of event, right? And then to identify what type of sponsorships that we want to reach out to, and then also factor in all the VIP upgrades for tables versus a lunch and learn for, just a quick bite. And then that's how I think it comes down to the sixth and final key point, is to balance and adjust to your audience and the type of event and the type of venue that you will host these events at. So maybe Peter can go down the items of the details of the pro forma on laying those out.
Yeah. You want me to go over that now, or at the end of the section?
I mean, I do have a question there about the pro forma, but I wanted to just kind of talk about a little bit about the budgeting for booking, and then how we allocate costs, and then understanding that part, and then going over the pro forma. So
That
maybe
works.
if you want to go ahead and answer maybe some of those questions, or do you think maybe some of those questions will
That's
be
okay.
answered?
We'll just answer these questions, then I'll go over the perform next. But
Okay.
I'd say, yeah, budgeting, Tao hit, all the points. That's why planning in advance is so important. You have to know what you're going to be spending, right? And so once you have a pro forma, every year it gets easier and easier, because there's no surprise costs, like, oh, we have to order more food, or oh, we forgot to order this. So the budgeting, doing it in advance, each event. I mean, we use the same pro forma for all our events, but really the monthly event versus our signature events, they're totally different. You have, for like a gala, you got like multiple line items for expenses. On a regular monthly event, it's not that much. It's maybe like 3 or 4 expenses.
Okay. All righty. And that's how you just allocate costs, is just using that pro forma, right? Did you want to go ahead and just share the form?
No, we can do that let me do that like towards the end.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Jocelyn, did you want to add on to how do you allocate costs?
No, Peter, just wait. You'll see what he has to say.
Yeah, Peter's like the expert
Yeah,
at this stuff,
exactly.
so
I'm like
we're all
taking
like
notes over
blown away.
here.
All right. Well, Peter, you know what? Just go ahead and take it away.
Okay.
And show us, like how you do things, because I think you kind of got it right with this one.
Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here. So before, we used to do like budgets, but we didn't do afterwards a kind of like an audit of all of our events. But this is something that we do before every event. And we know how much we need to raise in sponsorship for each event, because we are doing this, right? And so the top part is revenue, the bottom part's expenses, right? So This event is for our speed networking event that we did through Edge. We use it actually to promote our mentorship program for Edge. We kick it off with this event. We did it last year. It was a success, so we're doing it again this year. So this year we got a little bit more bold. We wanted to do it it was still a free space, but the venue essentially just charged us for food. So the food was about 18, 17. Everyone's on their own for their drinks. We printed out these cool banners for the mentors that we're promoting, and then we knew that it's going to cost the food is a big cost, right? So we got a sponsor that gave us $1,500, right? And we pitched them like, hey, last year we had 100 people at this event. You're going to be front and center. You're going to have some time to talk, and then we're actually going to highlight you at the speed networking. You're going to have all your promo. No one else is allowed to have promo items. So he gave us $1,500. And then he actually became an annual sponsor after this event. So this kind of helped with that. But look at, what we do is we do special ticketing prices for members and non-members. So the way I think about it is if you are trying to build membership, you have to add value. If all your events are free, why would I be a member? I can just go for free, right? So we are adding value by saying, hey, $30 for non-members, $20 for members. Every event if you go to the events, it's going to pay for the membership by itself, right? On top of the Hotel Engine, which I don't know if you guys are taking advantage of it, but it's the cheapest hotels you can find. But Hotel Engine is through RM membership, and that alone will save you the $120. But $20, $30, if you look at this, we had 38 non-members and 34 members. So it was almost 50-50. And that's how it's been for a lot of our events because people want to see what we're about. And then we tried something new this year for this event was paying different ticket prices at the door. And the reason why we want to have, charge for an event, if you do a free event, what's the chance of people coming through? It's usually going to be, whenever I do events, I'm going to guess about 50 to 60% of those people are actually going to come. If they're paying, even if it's something small like $10, $15, $20, they're going to come, right? They're going to come. And there's very few people who don't come. So what it does is it helps you prepare for the event. I know ahead of time how much food we need to order, right? And if we need to order more during the event, no big deal. But I know at least roughly how much it's going to cost for this event. And anything extra is just basically, I call it icing on the cake, right? So we made $1,860 in ticket sales alone, $1,500 for the sponsor. This event we made $1,087. So this is what we're doing. We've been doing it since last year, and it works because A, is predictable. We know what the costs are, and B, we're planning. We know how much we're going to be spending, and that we know how much we need to raise. So that touches on projecting profit. When does sponsorship come into play? Do you want me to answer these questions, or should we have
Yes,
Mamie
yeah, go
talk
ahead
about it?
go ahead and answer the sponsorship, like when it comes into play too.
Well, let's have Mamie talk real quick about it, and then I'll add on.
Mamie, did you want to answer that question? The question is when does sponsorship come into play?
Sponsorship should come in play in the very beginnings, not at the end, because I talked to a couple of chapters and we have great conversations, kind of throw some what are you doing for the chapter, how's the sponsor. For us in Greater Sacramento, we actually do really good that we have the sponsored package early to be able to showcase what we can offer, right? Because if you actually talk to the sponsor in the middle, the sponsor, it's not seeing something valuable, because sponsor is not something you can add on later. It should be part of the event strategy from day one, right? So if you wait until the event's already planned, then you're basically saying, here's what we already created. Do you want to pay for it, right? So that's a hard conversation. But if you actually bring sponsor in early, then it's actually showcased like, let's build something together that aligned with you know, your brand and our audience, our members, right? So I always, you know, the mindset I always say, we're not asking for money, we're just offering partnership. And that's the mindset that you always going to have, because the sponsors are looking for visibility, they're looking for credibilities and access to the right audience. So if we're planning events, I just think like, who would benefit from being in this room? So having the sponsor package early, especially sometimes the sponsors have like certain time frames to decide on what sponsors what, you know, sometimes it's like October at that time. So we need to prepare like around July or even August to make sure that we have the package ready to send out to the previous sponsors or some new sponsors to have them review this package, because some of the corporates, it'll take time to review the package. So you don't want to be the one that delay in November and they already decide on some of the sponsorships and you can't even get the sponsorship until like January, which you already starting the events already, and they're just coming in like, how can we prorate it? How, you know, if you have sponsor in February and March, like how can you prorate these events that already happened? Then the sponsors already missed some of the events and they're paying the funds and they won't feel comfortable, right? Or even though they feel comfortable, it's not fair in a way that as a partnership, you have to see it that way mentally, is that we want to offer 100% fully for what you're paid for, because this is a, you know, collaboration and partnerships, and we want to feel great to have you as a sponsor.
Yeah. All right.
So plan early, have the package early. So July, August, and then, you know, it's kind of aim in October.
Yeah, ideally, I would say have everything ready and planned, pick your board, go over your budget before you get installed. Usually, you know, installations are, I would say, should be done before the year starts, but you know, I know some go into like April, May, but I think when your year starts, when you're about to switch leadership, I think that's when all this needs to be identified, and that's when you need to already have everything in place. So once your new board comes in, you already should have the game plan going, and everybody should know what they're doing and what their roles are. Peter, did you want to add to that?
Well, we got 12 minutes left. You want to?
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's kind of wrap it
maybe.
up real quick. All right, the last question I had here on was what are the top revenue drivers? And this question would be for Tal.
Yes. The top revenue driver will be sponsorship. So we can ideally get sponsorships to contribute like 50 to 70% of the total, you know, revenue or expenses, whatever, however you want to allocate that. But sponsorship to me is like the number one way for us to even execute an event. And then, you know, secondly, I know we're short on time, so I'm going to make this really quick. Engage in auctions and fundraising, right? Denver did something that, you know, we kind of didn't do in the past, and we just threw out bottle service like fundraising, and we were very successful at our gala. And then I believe DC, you know, took on that same idea, and then they were very successful. And for Denver, that specific time under my term was to raise funds for the LA wildfires by just popping bottles for a cause. And that's how we were able to attract more revenue through a gala event, you know. So that on top of that was something that we just kind of have to be creative at times, right? And then of course, if you can sell tables over individual tickets, that's another thing that you can also hype up the crowd to buy VIP tickets to have the experience of, like, you know, an open bar or appetizers in their little VIP section. So those are the things that we'll cover for, you know, and we'll bring the whole group to come and, you know, take up the whole table. So I think those are the additional things that will drive in revenue if we can get sponsorship. And when sponsors can put in 50 to 70% of that revenue, it gives us more room to explore other creativities through silent auctions or popping bottles for a service, you know, for a purpose. So anyways, that's all I have to say. So I'm wrapping up on that.
Thanks, Tal. All right. So at the end of the day, when you start to treat your events like a business, that's when you start to see the real results. So we're kind of going to go a little bit around here because we are short on time and we are going to open it up to Q&A. I know that we did have a few questions in the chat. Let me see. Raymond, were you wanting to read them out or let me see. I think I could see them here.
I'll read it up. Do you invite
Okay.
the sponsors for the retreat, perhaps for lunch? How much she asks the sponsors to pay?
Oh,
Annual and event.
so
Must be
for the retreat, yes, we definitely try to add or ask a sponsor to host the retreat because again, they will get some good quality time with the new board. And like I said before, it sets the tone for the year. And they don't pay for the entire thing, but a good chunk of it. But they do get quality one-on-one time with the board. So that's how we did it in San Diego.
Yeah. So I'll answer the second part of the question. How much do we ask for sponsorship for event and annual? So we have a whole annual package that starts at really $1,000 and goes all the way to $10,000. But for the event one, we ask for a minimum of $1,000 because the way I think about it is the sponsor should cover the event cost, and then whatever we make off ticket sales is profit. Anybody else want to add to that? Okay.
Now, I was gonna read Ann Chang. How do you determine the admission fee for members and non-members?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we don't want to make it too expensive where it's like $100 and people are going to second guess it. But for gala, definitely you should be charging, I think, $200 plus for gala. But the member one is again budgeting, right? We need to figure out how much it costs per person, and we work backwards. So roughly $20 per person should figure. I figure it's going to cover the cost, and then $30 is the premium for, we charge non-members.
That's really important is to charge non-members a little bit more because you want to give them incentives for joining ARIA.
All righty. Jocelyn, maybe if you want to answer this one to Min Wen. He wanted to know what the acronym for action.
Oh,
If
sure.
you want to answer it to him, yeah.
Yes.
All right. And Michelle Velez, do you have any annual sponsors and additional event sponsors? Anybody want to answer that one?
I guess I can answer that one. Yes. The answer is yes, we have our annual sponsors and we also have event sponsors. And how we highlight these events versus annual sponsors is our annual sponsors, the package is already in there. So they already know what they get with their annual sponsorship. But to bring along these event sponsors are like the small businesses, the vendors, like the roof companies, the moving companies. These are the smaller sponsors that we can get to sponsor for an event at, maybe they can lay out their booth or something at a membership mixer at a Lunar New Year open house. But besides that, we have both due to the sponsorship level of annual sponsorship, they already know what they get within their $10,000 because for our Denver chapter, it starts out as I believe $2,500 to $10,000 and whatever's in between.
All righty, thank you for that. Chuck, how many members attend your events? I guess maybe a guesstimate here for the events. Anybody want to answer that one? I guess on the norm, like what's the average members that attending the events? 150, 75?
Depends on the popularity of the events. If you have like galas and things like that, that's probably like 300 and more, right? But if you have like signature, like those are signature one. But if you do like intimate ones, we're looking for more like in 50s to 75 around that average.
Okay. All righty. I know some people wanted to have the pro forma shared to them, the pro forma that Peter uses. I know that and we were talking about it briefly, but I think we wanted to do like masterminds. But we can share that, right, Peter? We can share that pro forma spreadsheet with everybody.
Yeah, I'll get it over to Raymond, and then Raymond can blast it to the people who
Yeah.
came.
Okay, that registered. Okay, perfect. All righty. Well, I think let me see, that's it. Oh, Peter
I like
Lee, what are some popular signature events some of the chapters are having? Anybody want to answer that one?
I'll go first. For our specific Denver chapter, it's more of what we've kind of started only for the past couple years is the Lunar New Year open house, besides the gala, obviously. That one has been attracting like 150 to 200 attendees this past year and the previous year. And that's something that we don't go all out on expenses either, but it exposes ARIA in the community. So something like that, if it's a continuous education class, between 30 to 50 is what our Denver chapter has experienced. And I know it's different for each chapter too. So maybe the other panelists could share their own experience on that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Anybody?
we also do a lot of community outreach events where we get people to come volunteer for something. And those might not be necessarily like money motivated, but it's more exposure for the chapter. So that's kind of a popular thing that we do every year is some kind of a community outreach.
Last question. What's your take on the quantity versus quality of events? Anybody want to answer that one?
What did we?
Go ahead.
No, I was just thinking quantity versus quality. So you can go on, Peter.
They should all have some quality, right? I mean,
You have both.
Aria,
You need to
I
have
will,
both.
I will say this, Aria, Seattle started out with just doing like monthly, I mean, just mixers, happy hours where people would just come. And that's actually how I got drawn in. I was just like, oh, room full of realtors. I'm a lender. So I'm going to meet a bunch of people. So you need to have that quality. You definitely want quality there because if you want FOMO and people to come to every single event, like, hey, Miriam, when's the next Aria event? You got to put an effort into it. So you got to have, I hate to say it, but you got to have both. You got to have quality and you got to have quantity. And at least once a month is needed because top of mind. Again, if you don't have another event for the next 3 months, why would they join? Why would the sponsors give you any money if you're not doing something every month and they can't be in front of the people?
Just
Yeah.
to piggyback off of that really quick is sponsors like to see an ROI. If they come to an event and there is no quantity there, they're going to not want to put their sponsorship funds into an organization that cannot drive in like attendees. And quality, it's because if you throw quality events, then people will come back to these events due to the quality that it, perhaps show at the event with guest speakers or panelists or food, whatever it is. So I do feel that it does come hand in hand with each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mine would be quality just because word will spread on how great the event is. And I think once quality's there, people start to come. But I guess it could be either or both.
Yeah, I do want to add this though. Quantity, having a lot of people at your event doesn't necessarily mean it's a successful event. Because if you have all the wrong people that are not going to be for our mission, that's not going to give back, why have them there? They're just there for the free food and drinks. Honestly, we don't want those people because they're not going to contribute to our cause. And so that's why I'm against free events.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we got to wrap it up. We got a few seconds left. I want to thank all the panelists and everyone that joined us today. We will be sending this information. And when I say we, I mean Raymond's going to send the performa sheets and anything else you need. And if you want to reach out to any of us to talk to us directly, you can email us at ARIA chapter, it's ariacdc@gmail, or send a message to Raymond and he'll contact us and we'll get connected. Okay. Have a great day and thank you for joining us again. All right.
Thank you,
Have a
Miriam.
great time, guys. Bye.